Hi there, and welcome to the Artificial Mind, Creativity in the Age of AI. I'm Anna DeVere Smith. I'm here with Robert Wong and Caroline Elkins. So, AI, is it a shiny new toy? Is it an evil genius? It's going to take away work and leave sectors of society desperate and unemployed and purposeless. What is this new frontier? And I have here with me two wonderful, extraordinary people who are going to help us just think about it a little bit. We're not going to take questions because there's so much to say, but I want to informally invite you to either seek these two individuals out right after this or find them on the walk, because they have a lot more to say than they're going to be able to say here. Robert Wong is Vice President of Google Creative Lab. Prior to this, he was Executive Creative Director of Arnold Worldwide. His work has won many industry awards and has been shown at exhibitions around the world, including Cooper Hewitt, National Design Museum, and the Museum of Modern Art. Caroline Elkins is the Thomas Henry Carroll Ford Foundation, a lot of people in there to get that endowed right? Chair, professor at Harvard Business School and professor of history at Harvard University. Caroline's first book, Imperial Reckoning, was awarded the Pulitzer Prize for general nonfiction, and her subsequent book, Legacy of Violence, was a finalist for the Baillie Gifford Prize and New York Times Notable 100 Book of 2002. So to give us a frame of AI in the age of creativity in the age of AI, sorry, how lucky are we to have someone from the Google Creative Lab? And Robert, you're going to show us two of your new videos, new works.
Yeah, I'll start out. First, before I start, I just want to say, it's awesome to be here. It's also deeply intimidating. I was lucky enough to see a couple of sessions yesterday. Brilliant minds. I'm a graphic designer by training. Have an art degree, and and doubly intimidating is that this is being recorded. So whatever stupid thing I say will be on the internet forever. Okay, so I'll try my best. Hopefully, some of the stuff will be useful. The two videos I decided to play for you guys, just so there's a baseline of where we're at with AI, and particularly filmmaking. So the first video is a 60-second social video my team put together for the launch of Veo 3. And for those of you who don't know, it's a video generation model. And it was literally just launched like about 6 weeks ago, and it has blown up the internet. And the reason why is you could generate videos for the last for about a year or so, where you prompt and it generates a video. But with Veo 3, it's the first Gen AI model that has native sound and audio, which means that now the silent era of AI films is officially over. You'll hear dialogue, whether you prompt it or it kind of makes up its dialogue. So when you play this thing, just know that everything here is generated with a prompt. So no actors, no set designers, no audio mix people. Can you just run that real quick? And then I'll give you a little brief intro for the second one.
It's your boy Jack here, just scored some magic beans, no cap, heading home to plant these now, and make sure to like and subscribe to see my progress.
Okay, now that you've made 3 different temperatures of porridge, go on a walk and hope no one comes into your home.
Hey guys, so tonight I'm hoping she kisses me, because I'm like really kind of sick of this whole frog thing.
Now you'll want to use real strong sticks in case anyone tries to blow down your shelter at any point later on in the future.
OMG, you guys. I just woke up from the longest nap ever. Like, what time is it even?
Anyway, like, what I was saying was that, yeah, my inbox is absolutely blowing up with all of these DMs wanting to buy my merch. I mean, like,
What's good, Wolfpack? I'm on the way to Grandma's house. Sound off in the comments if you think I look just like Grandma.
Okay, so, I've never base jumped this high before. We'll see how it goes.
King's horses and King's men, standing by.
Let's go!
Okay, so So that's just fun and silly, but I've been a creative director for like decades, which basically means that I actually haven't made anything for decades. I just take credit for other people's work. But with AI, it's so easy. Like even I could prompt some of this stuff and submit some of these clips. Okay, the second thing is on the far right of the spectrum, where in developing AI models and AI tools, we've been working with the creatives in the fields of rapping, music, visual arts, and most recently filmmaking, to just try to figure out how AI can best help them with their craft. And so also about a month ago, we partnered with, we announced a partnership with Darren Aronofsky, the Oscar-winning director of The Whale, The Wrestler, Pi, Wrecking for a Dream. And we're partnering to make 3 short films. And this is an excerpt of a behind-the-scenes first short film that was premiered at Tribeca Film Festival just a couple of weeks ago. And he has handpicked like a bunch of directors to help make these films. And this is Eliza talking about the experience of making this short. And you roll this video.
The most important part of this process is knowing what to use these tools for and to have artists driving the filmmaking. This was a process where hundreds of people came together to create something special. A big piece of my approach was really with actors. There's just nothing like a human performance and the kind of emotion that an actor can evoke.
Okay, great, let's cut.
But when I wrote that there would be a newborn baby, I did not know the solution of how we would do that, because you can't get a baby to act. Filming with newborns is a nightmare. You can get really lucky on sets, but you just don't know what's gonna happen. The other options are a CG baby, or you can have a doll, but I really pushed the team here at Google, can we use my baby photos to generate a newborn that looks like me, and then combine that generated baby with live action footage of the mother. So we did a bunch of tests where I was just laying on a couch holding air, and a day later the team came back to me with this image of a baby in my arms, and it wasn't just a baby, it was me. That was the moment that we were like, holy shit, I think this is gonna work.
Wow. Wow.
The short film is called Ancestra, is on YouTube, so go check it out.
So I think that really launches us into the question, is AI going to replace us as creatives? Caroline, let's start with you.
Okay. First of all, that's very cool. Extraordinarily cool. And I think, but I want to unpack a little bit about what's, and from the creative process, what's going on here, at least as I understand it. So you have a sort of 3 sets of, sort of 3 large data sets, right? One textual, one visual, one audio. And the AI it's math, right? It's doing massive sort of pattern predictions, billions and billions and billions, and then it's spitting them out. But ultimately, it's the human that has to make the choices. Right? And so when I look at this, I say AI is amazing. It's a general purpose tool. It's amazing, but it's increasing our efficiency to take all of this stuff and reduce it. But we're not eliminating, it's not the same as creativity. It's that human element that comes into this, right? And so when I think about it, even from some of my own work and sort of looking at some things, like for example—
As a historian.
As an historian.
A nonfiction historian.
Nonfiction historian.
Well, we hope a nonfiction.
Yeah, we hope, right? But, right, yeah. Careful with ChatGPT, it might be fiction. So so I ran a little sort of experiment getting ready for today, which is because, look, you think about the ability to aggregate the amount of information that's out there. And so one of the things that was animating my last book is I wanted to understand the connection between violence and liberalism, right? Big picture question that sort of kept me going.
How many pages was that book?
800.
800.
And I wasn't done saying so. Anyway, so I put this into ChatGPT, and I said, what is the relationship between violence and liberalism? And out comes what looks startlingly familiar. And in fact, so much to turns of phrase that, writers have tics, and I'm sort of going through this. Okay, so it's basically not, it's telling me a whole lot of stuff that I already know, making all these kinds of different connections, but deriving it largely from the stuff I've already published. And so then I ask ChatGPT, so what scholar did you get the answer from? Well, it gives about 5 or 6, 7 scholars, none of whom are me. Okay. So then I ask the question, this looks rather derivative of Caroline Elkins's work. What do you have to say about that? Oh, right, so then begins a series of back and forth between me and the machine, going back and forth about this, until finally it gets to the point of saying, so sorry, such a mistake, and then, yes, were I human, this would be plagiarism. Okay, so that's all here. So I guess the point that I'm making is that from my own work, as well as all kinds of study, Nature has done studies on this with scientists, that the ability of AI for right now to sort of lighten our burdens, to compress and aggregate data, but it's the humans that are still making the decisive insights and the leaps, right? And I think we have to be very careful not to conflate AI with creativity. AI is a tool that can enhance our creativity, and that we have to be very careful not to sort of fetishize the volume of stuff coming out versus the originality of what's coming out. And I think in that sense, and we can talk some more about it, but I think in that sense we also have to be thinking about sort of how is that originality then going to have impact and meaning in our lives, right? And sort of we can come to that. But so I wouldn't say I'm a skeptic of AI, but I want us to step back and really ask ourselves the question of what is AI doing, and can it replace humans in creativity? And right now, much of what we're seeing is it's not replacing us, but it's giving a new toolkits to enhance what we're doing.
Well, yeah, I think that's what many of us is doing, is stepping back. And Robert, the Sleeping Beauty, for example, before I talked to you and knew it wasn't an actor, my response to Sleeping Beauty as an actress was, wow, she has really got a very sort of supple face that's doing really interesting things. She must have been very relaxed by the director. And then you told me, oh no, that's not an actor. So, and at the same time, I mean, you seem sort of, consoling in thinking that everything has changed, but nothing has changed. And I'll talk a little bit about that. Console us a little bit.
Yeah. So before I even start, I would say, Caroline, you might have better luck with Google Gemini. Just saying. On the is AI going to replace us thing, from my experience, I don't think so. And I think, one thing that AI is really powerful, it can do lots of stuff, but it has no taste. AI has no taste. And I don't know if anyone read the article, this great Atlantic article by the former dean of Harvard Business School. The title is Good Taste is More Important Than Ever, pretty much in the age of AI. Because while AI can generate 1 trillion things, like it always takes a person go like, well, that clip is the best one. And it's the human that has the empathy to know by looking at all the things like, okay, that's the one that I think will connect to another human, make them laugh, make them cry, make them feel something. So what the reason why I think AI is not going to replace us is I've come to the two observations. Everything has changed, nothing has changed. On the everything has changed part, AI is very powerful at driving efficiency, lowering cost of production, and the free market and capitalism will just drive that. Lots of things can happen, but it also has creative implications, and I can talk about that later with a scenario. Second, AI is lowering the barrier of creation. It's democratizing creativity, in the sense that you don't need to know Photoshop or Final Cut Pro. Anyone can prompt something and generate a video clip. So we have writers on our team that are making films. We have designers who are vibe coding apps without knowing how to code. And I think whenever more people have access to create, generally, cool things happen. And the last thing is, and I've seen the less of that, but I think that's an opportunity. And whenever I talk to people, I go, this is the opportunity, everyone. And that is how AI can actually bust the creative ceiling of doing something that could never be done before. And we don't know what that looks like, but that's what I'm most excited about. Back to but nothing has changed part, is that making great work is hard. As easy as to prompt a clip, for it to be a great clip is really, really hard. You might have to do 1,000, prompts to get to that one thing. And not only that, as I said before, AI didn't make any of those funny clips that made you laugh. It's humans who are talented, with taste, armed with AI, made that little funny video. So I think that's why I feel, and maybe, I'm deluding myself, but self-preservation here, I do believe that more than ever, people with taste, with aesthetic taste, not just like the formal beauty of things, but also sometimes it talks about this article, like the values, the moral values of something, does that feel good to a human when they see this or experience this or hear this, or will it turn them off? And that AI has, as far as I know, aren't human, and they can't have these feelings and can't, help direct where things go.
And even as you talk about democratization, I hear you say it's hard. It's really, really hard. You have to go through several prompts. Well, there's only going to be, a few people who learn how to do that and are good at that, right?
No, this is where I think it might feel like that. A lot of people feel like, oh no, am I behind? They might be intimidated. The thing I would say is this. In any moment of disruption, the people who thrive the most are creative people, the curious people. And the most important thing you or anyone in your company or your family can do is to start playing with the stuff. I don't know, how many here have used AI to make an image? Just curious.
Everybody.
All right. Wow. How about video? See, you know what? This is a self-selecting group because you are, by nature, coming to this conference. You're naturally curious, interesting people. But that's the most important thing, just to play with the AI versus listen to people talk about AI.
Yeah. And, okay, so the next question is going to sound like so general that, but I want to preface it by saying that our mutual friend, James Manyika, who's an evangelist, of course, had me over to his house talking and I, started about, does it have a sense of humor? Does it have empathy? Yes, yes, yes. But at the end of an hour and a half, James said, well, it doesn't have empathy, it just acts like it has empathy. So there's a difference. And so when I ask each of you, what do you mean by creativity? Mm-hmm. What do you mean when you say that?
Okay, great question. First of all, let me step back big picture and then I'll drill down in sort of my own kind of definition. But I think it's important to point out when I think about creativity, creativity is nonlinear. Creativity is anti-algorithmic. AI is all about predictability and being linear, right? And so when we think about creativity, I think about something has to be novel and original, and it has to have impact, right? And we want to be very careful not to flatten that. Now, what do I mean by that? We were chatting earlier. So we can have all different kind of, if we sort of think about creativity sort of on an upward scale, where down here we might have what we might call mini creativity. You learn how to make a new cake. You love that new cake. That was very creative. Nobody else eats the cake, but for you, on an individual basis, that was a creative act. Your Jameses of the world and others, they're not after that. They're not even after the little c. The kind of creativity perhaps where I might categorize some of this, which is sort of change. It's original. Maybe it's having some impact on an organization or a market or beginning to receive glimmers. That's even not what these guys are up to. They're not putting hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars to have talking cows. What they want is big C creativity. They want the steam engine. They want big. Paradigm breaking, going to change society and the world. Most importantly, innovation is the only thing that raises global GDP, and that's what they're after, right? And so when I think about creativity and innovation, I think of them as variants of the same thing. And we can have all kinds of ways in which, as a society, we have become less creative. We know this. Everywhere from Turing's test that had a big study that was done at William & Mary, where we see society has become less creative since the 90s, to what James would be interested in, our labor productivity factor, the growth of that, is about innovation. It was about 2% in the 1990s. It's below 0.5% now. That terrifies business leaders. At the same time, Microsoft does a big study and says 2 out of 3 leaders 30,000 leaders, 31 different countries, 2 out of 3, they're worried that their teams are deficient in the creativity that is needed for the next big breakthrough idea, right? Big C, right? And so what I'm interested in myself as a historian, somebody who is a writer, nonfiction writer, then who's got the next original idea to change how I think about the past, which is going to shape how I think about the future, and it's going to reshape how I think about how all this technology is going to work. Big C, right? That doesn't make any of this any less important, but I think we have to be very careful not to flatten what we mean by creativity, its originality, and the way in which it's impacting things.
Respond.
Okay, you asked me to respond to a Harvard professor with a best-selling book on creativity. So, okay, I don't think I have a tight definition of creativity, but I do know that, humans are just born with it. We're hardwired. We like to make. We like to create. We like to solve problems. We like to make connections. To me, that is just part of who we are, and I think you can enjoy the creativity in small c and big C. I totally agree with you on the transformative impact of innovation. Working at Google, I recently came to this realization, and it seems so obvious, but it's actually kind of sublime to me too, is that everything is made up. Literally everything. Every language ever spoken, countries, religions, every law ever written, Capri salad, weekends didn't exist. Someone thought of it, and now we just assume that's the state of the world. And so on the big C part, like anyone, you don't have to have a PhD, that can just wouldn't it be cool if we didn't work 7 days a week, and can come up with a thought, and if it's compelling enough, it can actually, change society, and now we take it for granted. We all live with, we have quantum computing, we have AI. So this is all things just made up. And so that to me is the most exciting thing about creativity. It's just an opportunity for us to constantly evolve and better our lives, our species, our children's children, hopefully before, we destroy the planet. But I think that to me, that's just the sauce. And on the small c stuff, because I'm a designer, I focus on the creative arts, designers, writers, creative coders. And had been my personal sort of mission is to bring people from the humanities, from the creative arts, into the center of what's driving society, whether it's business or technology. And that's why I ended up at Google. Because it takes all kinds of creativity, whether it's rocket scientists, AI model developers, and just, people just oh, that's cool. That feels good. That looks awesome. Ooh, that gives me meaning. And so there's creativity in all sorts, and I love the idea of bringing creative arts into.
Well, just say a little bit more about that. The key word here is the humanists, humanities, and we've watched in universities. In some places, they probably don't even teach literature anymore. So when you say that you're bringing the humanities into the middle of it, can you just make that concrete for us, what you mean by that?
Adding beauty, adding meaning.
By how? How do you
making
bring
things look better.
But you don't actually bring humanists into your studio. You do. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, products, because everyone comes at things from their perspective, right? I don't know if anyone ever heard this story about the business person, the artist, and the scientist analogy. They're all at a bar, because these stories all start with them at a bar. And the business person says, "Oh, you know what? If we build a road from our town to the other town, it'd be really good for both our economies." And then the scientist said, "Oh yeah, let's make a straight road so it's most efficient to get from one town A to town B." And then the artist was like, "Oh yeah, that's a good idea. But what if we, instead of building a straight road, we build a road a quarter of a mile to the coastline and run the road along the coast to the town so that for all eternity, people will love the drive." And then they're like, "That's a good idea." And then lots of people go on this road, and then the scientist goes, "Hey, you know what? We should put a digital toll booth, easy pass, so that you don't have this." Anyway, so the business and the science and the art all work together to hopefully get to the best answer for humanity. And that's the only plan I have. There's no more details than that, but I just think bringing people to the table from these different perspectives, I think good outcomes will happen.
Well, the word efficient. So, Caroline, I know that one of the things you told me was that you think that, in a way, AI is the very end of a very long cult of efficiency, and that when it promises efficiency, it's taking us somewhere else. But why don't you talk about how you think about the efficiency and just unpack that a little bit about how we got to this cult of efficiency to this point, from this cult, the beginnings to here.
Okay, sure.
Sorry.
No problem. Look, I think in some ways, as a historian, you can look at this moment of AI its emergence is entirely overdetermined, right? And I want to step back and sort of unpack what I mean by that. So we, as societies, as people, we try to sort of have theories of change, right? What's driving major changes in the world? And a long time ago was the divine, God, right? And then we had the secular turn, and in the 18th century, it was all about progress. In the 19th century, it was all about evolution. And the 20th century, and what I call now the long 20th century, taking us into now 2025, it's been about efficiency. Quite intentionally, right? Frederick Winslow Taylor introduces the principles of scientific management. And that principle of scientific management is all about how do we become more productive through greater and greater efficiency, right? That's all business schools. Harvard Business School was the first. All business schools are built on that notion, that idea of efficiency. But that notion just isn't about business anymore. It's crept into everything. How many people here have a step counter or an app that can tell you how to optimize your day? Everything is about efficiency. It's embedded into every aspect of our life. And AI is ultimately, in some ways, the penultimate efficiency model, right? Okay. So if we think about it in this kind of way, there's a tension between efficiency and creativity. Because the other thing that's great about being, and I have such privilege being around like really brilliant colleagues. Like I just read their stuff and try to make sense of it. And one of which is creativity's ultimate kryptonite. Kryptonite is a compression of time. You need time to be creative. And yet we're being rewarded for efficiency. So I love your story. Go into the bar, you have these three people. What's going on in the world today, these three people aren't, the efficiency model does not allow for this, right? And so the question, and by the way, the critique of the efficiency model, anybody familiar with Bertrand Russell, he wrote in Praise of Idleness. And he writes in the 1930s about the cult of efficiency. And at that point, he's very worried about factory workers, right? What's happening with that and what's being done with efficiency gains. And it's just being plowed back into the efficiency model. So the question, the $64,000 question is, can you get the world, society, to grow a new head? It needs to grow a new head. Because it has to say, I'm no longer going to take the efficiency gains and shorten deadlines and raise KPIs. And by the way, that same Microsoft study, these same 30,000 leaders, 2 out of 3 fretting over the next big idea, 79% of them said they're going to plow efficiency gains back into the efficiency model. So when we want the big C, we need time. And again, lots of studies about the relationship between time and creativity. If you are working in a high-pressure environment with time, and I have a wonderful colleague named Teresa Mabale who did fabulous work on this, it will decrease creativity. If you have a very short spurt of something, like a big, passionate idea that's a short time frame, people believe in it, and you can do that once every so often, that will yield higher creativity. So the question is, will all these folks who, by the way, want more and more efficiency to raise our productivity, to raise global GDP, who also recognize in the creative sense that you're going to need to be more creative to do that. And what we're up to, by the way, is feeding all that. The knee bone is connected to the shin bone, as Robert's pointing out. But we have to have a total paradigm shift in how we think about time if we're going to really, in my view, really benefit from what AI is giving to us. And I think that's a big if.
Well, now you would say it's not just efficiency. It's promising efficiency, democratization, and new possibilities. So flesh that out and respond to Dr. Elkins.
No doubt, efficiency is driving a lot of the fervor. But I think it's not just efficiency people are excited about. It's like new businesses, new services that might be generated on top of AI that hasn't been invented, just kind of like the mobile era. Without that, an Uber couldn't have existed. And I think there's going to be new companies and services that we don't even know would be in our world that that's beyond efficiency. And you either have to trust the humans, like if we're ultimately the consumers of all this. Yes, McDonald's is the most efficient probably food place on the planet, but like sometimes we like it, but most of the time we choose other things besides McDonald's. And I think quality will be a big factor. And so I trust that humans won't only consume the most efficient, cheapest thing, and that we will crave like quality, authenticity, things that AI might help produce, but it's not the end of itself.
Democratization and new possibilities.
Yeah, exactly. I guess I don't know, maybe I'm an optimist. I just believe humans won't drive ourselves to just be our own cogs in our own world, in our own lives, that we will, our humanity will prevail and we will choose and build things that will enrich our lives. And we'll build products and services that will enrich other people's lives, and that's how we will win. Not just by making it cheaper or faster or more of it. And so the more thing, it's really important, like back to the AI, because I was just at the Cannes Lion Festival in France a couple of weeks ago, which is the world's largest conveyor of marketing and advertising agencies. And we hosted a lunch with 40 of the chief creative officers from the largest agency networks and also the largest brands. And it's interesting how the evolution of the concept of AI and creativity has evolved in the last couple of years. 2 years ago, it was like there was a lot of fear, and there was a lot of theory, and some early practical experimentation. Last year, you began to see a lot of the, that's cool practical use. And this year, everyone at the lunch was saying, like, we are all in. And our teams, all our teams are like spending 50% or 100% of the time in AI tools in the process of making. And because they're excited, they're curious, the creatives, they're excited to see like, what new, creative ceiling can we bust open? So that.
Well, we actually have time. I'm very interested, given the fact that the number of people who responded, that they're working with us a little bit. If we could get a mic into the house, I'd love to see if there's some questions for Caroline Elkins or for Robert. Here's a question right here in the purple shirt.
Here we go. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for this panel. I think this is really important to talk about. I'm a filmmaker. I'm a young filmmaker. And I feel very torn when it comes to AI because I believe in the creative space, because I feel it degrades the value. And when I say value, I mean intrinsic value, and I also mean financial value of the work. And I'll use my experience personally. I go to Loyola Marymount University, go Lions, just saying. And we had an amazing workshop where we had the opportunity to use AI to create a 30-second trailer, 30-second sizzle reel. As a filmmaker that is not Darren Aronofsky, and I don't have that kind of money, I said, wow. This is cool. In 2 hours, I now have a sizzle reel that I can show to producers, and that could be amazing. Yet, at the same time, in film school, I have some amazing animator friends that could have done the exact same thing, and that is me devaluing their work by saying, okay, I'm gonna pay this $29.99 subscription a month over giving you the money that you deserve. So I was wondering, I'm so sorry, the woman in the white. If you could talk a little bit about how AI degrades the value of human thought and creativity.
First of all, thank you for that. And what a hugely important question. I have to tell you, as somebody who's in the creative space, and also I live in a strange world. I had this new project I'm working on. It's called Crossing the River, Creativity in the Age of AI. Because at Harvard, one side of the Charles River is where all the humanists live. And that's where I am, in part. I'm an historian. And on the other side of the river is where all the business people and the STEM folks live. And they don't talk to each other, for the most part. And also, I think, to your point, there's a sense, and I'll give you sort of a reductive answer, but what keeps me awake at night is that the value, these big LLMs or whatever they are, they're only as good as the data that goes into them, right? And right now, I don't want to get in all the lawsuits, but they're ripping us off, right? I mean, I just gave you one little example of this, but there's lawsuits that are being, New York Times, Authors Guild, all this is ongoing. And I'll be honest, it doesn't look good. I think fair use is probably going to win out. So the question becomes the devaluing, but also our ability to do our work. At what point do artists and creatives put their tools down to say, I can't do this. I can't live off of, now I'm getting paid nothing because it's just sucking it all off and into these data sets. So I think what we really, along with all this other stuff in the creative space, we need to rethink the financial model. I actually think a genius financial model, although some of the creatives with the Atlantic don't agree, is the Atlantic. What Lorraine Powell Jobs has done is she has partnered with OpenAI, and rather than, and let's just sort of spin this out a little bit in this particular instance, rather than owning their IP, right, it's being sold. So you're not getting the back end of the deal, right? You're not getting that. But they're paying you up front to create. And that creating up front, right, is a win for Altman and OpenAI. Because remember, these eventually, all this stuff output homogenizes. It flattens. So the beast has to keep being fed. And it's only being fed by you and people like us, the creative folks. So you got to keep us going. And so so right now, all these different folks, like I wish I were like a techie guy. Like they're paying $100 million bonuses, apparently, I've been told. Right? Yeah, exactly. I'm in the business world side, on the business
I didn't
school
get
side.
that, just so
I know.
you know.
All right, you didn't get that. But the point is, and I'll end this, I don't want to take up too much time, but the point of this is that the equally as important to James, to Altman, to everybody else, is that data beast keeps being fed by highly creative work. And we cannot, and we've got a real pickle because that whole field has been devaluing the humanities for 20 years. And even if you don't agree with me on this, Robert and I are in agreement that it's humans making choices, aesthetic choices, coming out of AI, and yet our young people are less and less capable of making those choices because we've cut our literature programs and our humanities programs. So the whole financial model and the education model has to change if we're really going to take advantage of this general purpose tool. And what I mean by that, this is like electricity's been discovered, or the wheel. It has a general purpose technology that has massive abilities, but we got to be really careful about how creatives are rewarded and kept afloat to make us more and more creative.
As a creative person and with teams of creative people, I totally empathize, and there was a lot of that, fear. And one thing that James Amiga talked about, because he studied a lot of technologies' impact on society and jobs a lot, and he said something that really was like, okay, well, it's based on research, and that yes, there will be job displacement, but also yes, there will be job creation, new jobs, but more than anything, the biggest impact will be jobs changed. And let me talk about that a little bit in relation to the Illustrator for a second. I don't know if you guys know this, but before photography, most painters' jobs was to paint portraits. So a good painter could be, it's all about how photorealistic can you make that portrait. And of course, when photography came, it just freaked a lot of people out. Painters like, oh, well, wait a minute, they can capture realism better than me. We're screwed. What do we do? But when painters were relieved from the job of painting realism, that's also when modern art came about. Impressionism is not like about painting the exact person, it's like painting the feeling of that person or the feeling of the place. And so with that, so yes, it was disruptive, and jobs were displaced, but jobs were changed, meaning those painters, then you have the Picassos, you have the, Renoirs. And so it's interesting. I don't know where this goes, and no one can predict, but I do think the human desire to just make and be useful and be valuable, you will just continue to chase that, and hopefully we just generate new value in other ways.
Just so that desire, which is, I don't even think we know enough about the brain yet, right? When you talk about decision making or even taste, or we know enough about the brain yet to then think about what this artificial brain is going to be and how we relate to it. So there's a way in which we could end up with the big, I taught at Stanford for 10 years and saw, it's amazing, like how different it is than when I was there, when I left there in 2000, and the money, right, that we did. So my department, drama department, they flew me all the way back from Harvard as a junior professor to argue that they shouldn't kill us, but they were going to get rid of the whole damn thing, right? So it's not that we feel respected in these larger institutions as it is. Large institutions, large places. Here at Aspen, we constantly talk about, like, where are the arts? How can we make them bigger? It's like a question that any way prevails everywhere. And so there's a way in which I say, when I love how, I'm a hopeaholic too, but there's a way in which we could end up with our bit of desire and our desire to create and our ability to create in the bottom of a well, and nobody's going to hear what we're doing because the other part of it is so big. But the thing, you did say something that did make me very interested, is this idea that when photography came in, right? Okay, so then that meant you could make different kinds of art. But I was looking a lot at the Civil War lately, at images of the Civil War, and the photographs actually don't help me, right? It's the etchings and the drawings and the paintings that really show me something powerful, emotional, beautiful, even of tragedy, beautiful, of people in a grave, or the sharpshooters, extraordinary painting and drawing and so forth. So there is also, for us who are the quote-unquote creatives, I'm not sure I really like that word as a way of putting us in a place, there is a way that we should be using this moment, the way that the painters and the etchers continued to work, let's say in the Civil War, because those photographs aren't good enough to really give you the picture. You really have to look at Harper's Weekly and Frank Leslie's Illustrated to really, and to get a picture of what was going on in the Civil War. So I think there's a way we should be using this transitional time rather than just being scared. You have a question right there in the middle?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Oh.
In my experience working with Gen AI so far, it's exactly as you described and showed in the video. It can implement my idea based on my prompts. How far away are we, in your opinion, from a future when it actually can imagine? It can be the one with the novel, creative idea, and then going on to implement it.
It's a $10 trillion question. I think, well, I know AI has no will. It has no desire. And the most important tool is our desires, our incentives. And with our desires and our incentives, that's what creates a prompt. Like, I want to see this in the world. I need to solve this problem. I have a story. It's a pretty personal story. Not for me, but like a colleague of mine who's a marketing person at YouTube, and him and his wife went through a tough fertility journey, and then it happened. They were graced with a baby boy, and at 7 months old, the unthinkable happened. He had a seizure in the middle of the night, and he was diagnosed after a bit of like uncertainty that he has this ultra rare disease, which is a class of diseases that maybe like 1 or 2 people in the world are working on solving, and that max would have a life expectancy of 5 to 7 years old. So that's like heart-wrenching. But as a dad, what do? Just, you know, he used Gemini to first try to understand this disease, and he got all the research, all the PDFs, all the scientific papers on this thing, whatever there was, and just, you know, put it in and to see, like, can you summarize this to me so I can understand what this is? And as he's reading these summaries, it just so happened that his family had a history of Alzheimer's, and oh, this seems a little bit related. And then he, you know, asked Gemini to find like papers on Alzheimer's that's related to this, got a bunch of stuff coupled together. Hey, can you figure out what the correlation between this stuff is? And this is a marketing guy, right? Like a business degree, that knows nothing about science. And it created these correlations, and it's like, can you distill this into email? I'm going to send it to these 2 researchers on the planet who are working on the disease and see if it'd be helpful to them. He sent it on the Friday and came back on a Monday where it's like, oh my God, if we've never thought about this would be huge if it's actually true. Let's now, you know, let's send emails to like all these people who are researching Alzheimer's, because there's a $1 trillion business with armies of scientists working on it for big companies. And as of a couple of months ago, there are now 6 labs, you know, working on, you know, with the Alzheimer knowledge, working on this disease. So we don't know where it's going to go, but, you know, there's a chance that their son will live longer than 7 years. And this is when you realize it doesn't matter how powerful a tool is or technology is, the most powerful thing is the human desire, the human, you know, his incentive was just to make sure his son lived. And ultimately, it's our desires that we should be afraid of or proud of. Like, what are we choosing? What are we chasing? And that's why I so deeply believe in humanities. Like my wife's an actor, my daughter's a dancer, my other daughter's a creative writer. I just believe we're not just here to increase GDP for each other.
I see one really hard question back there, and then we'll be wrapping up. So I hope it's really a question, not an essay.
Anna, can I make one quick point on the last question, which is just to point out, since AI was, if you will, termed in the 1950s, there's been surveys done and people in the field. Basically, since it's the 1950s, every 2 to 5 years, there is prediction that in 2 to 5 years, we will have sentient AI. So I want us to be very clear about this. Personally, I think it's a red herring. This has to do with business, promises, all the rest of it. I think the point that's been made about human insight and the importance of that will continue for the foreseeable future, in my view, and it sort of agrees with what Rob said.
I promise it's not an essay and a question. So I'm an architect, and like, I constantly, going back to Dr. Elkins and her culture of efficiency, you know, I get calls like, yeah, that beautiful brick wall you designed, can you make it out of pressed feathers? And so we've been living for that culture of efficiency that's given us this, you know, not great society. And so in terms of getting to a paradigm shift, Dr. Elkins, isn't it just that people who are creative aren't just seen as fuel feeding the beast, but are actually in positions of some amount of control or at least guidance, and not just business people and technologists who are so consumed with efficiency and kind of human degradation at a certain level that comes from that efficiency?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's the question. And in 1 minute and 20 seconds, 60 seconds for you and 60 seconds for you. Hardly 60. So just let's have closing statements.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It's a fabulous question. And I actually think as creatives, all of us in different ways, we actually have a lot more power than we think we do, right? Insofar as when we think about, and we can, I think all agree in the importance, the significance to our lived experience of what we do. But in this bigger universe of the business and the tech folks, they need us, right? And initially what I think is going to happen is there's going to be it's going to be a lot easier to pay for AI-generated stuff. It's cheaper. It's more efficient. But it's going to ultimately yield less and less creative things. And they need us in terms of what it is that we are, your designs, this young woman's films, my books, right? To get to that next big thing, to the point that where, creativity is it's an incremental process. Really, nothing is sort of original, per se. We're building on what's come before us. But these folks need us in ways that right now they're just ripping us off. But once the rip-off is done, then you still have to create things, right? And you still have to be able to have these elements that are going to get us to that next big place. And I'll pause there, but I would encourage us to say that I think we have far more power than we think we do. But the question is, how do we begin to imagine what that new model is? And it's going to have to be a new model around it.
Okay. Take us home, Robert.
Yeah. I think there's a reason why a lot of creative people aren't CEOs, because we don't want to go to business school. We don't want to optimize.
I don't know about you. I wouldn't have gotten in.
Yeah, we wouldn't have gotten in. We like what we do. So I think it actually, for this thing to change, we need the people who are leading companies. And we think about what made this room possible, this week possible. Walter, corporate titan, but he believed in the arts and design, and he rallied these minds together. So this is a call for everyone else. You know, it's not just the creative jobs. I'm trying my best.
And Dan, because I was here when Ideas started, and was nowhere near as big as it is with Dan as our chair. Thank you, Dan, for bringing us all together here this year.
So basically, my call is like for everyone to just deeply understand this, and to your call to action is like, you know, it's not just the creatives can't do it. We may not be that interested in it, and it's like it takes everyone to like join the party to make this whole.
And I'm so glad that I opened it up to questions, because we can see how important it is that there's a kind of innate democratization, is that we all have something to say about this, and we all know different levels of things about it. But thank you so much for being with us, and let's thank our two extraordinary
Thank you.